Hello, it's me, and we're going to take a tour back to Mod City. We're going to go over some modifications of 3x3s, but with a little bit of a twist with these guys. So this is one such, which is a star, yellow star. We've got pink hearts, yellow moons, and all the other Lucky Charms. But in any case, what's interesting about this is at first blush it looks like your standard 3x3 mod. You've got one layer here, middle layer here, and of course another layer here, and then you can slice out other layers along here. What's interesting about this, and what makes this a little bit more of a challenge, is the fact that it's stickerless. It's one color, which has a very similar type of challenge that you'll find with other shape shifters that are of one color, like the mirror cube or the bump cube, I think it's called. But you know, they're fairly solvable, and they solve pretty much like a 3x3, mostly because every shape is different. Now the thing about this is, because of the symmetry of the design of this puzzle, you run into situations where you have shapes that are the same, that are similar, and because of that you run into some very interesting parodies. Now I'll tell you that the solve of this is no different from any other 3x3, and the parody situations that you run into are exactly the same nature as the parodies that we ran into when we went over the case cube. If you've never seen that, that was something that showed us two different types of parodies: edge parodies and corner parodies. So this will be a good opportunity between this puzzle and this puzzle to talk about what to do about those types of situations, and to delve a little further into how to approach parodies. Now understand, when I say parody, I'm not really referring to the strict definition of what parody is, and I'm going to get into more details of that in future tutorials about the actual definition of what parody truly is. And when I use the word parody, sometimes it's more of just kind of a shortcut. But the true nature of the word parody, which is a specificity of odd versus even, isn't exactly what I'm necessarily talking about. What I'm really talking about is what I call the fallacy of false equivocation, where you're falsely and erroneously and fallaciously equivocating. All right, that was my wife tickling me. Equivocating one shape for one piece for another piece because they're the same shape, or one orientation of a single shape for a different orientation of that shape because it's symmetric, or even possibly one side for another. And we are ripe with that possibility because of the fact that we have a shape here and here that are exactly the same. And if that isn't enough, we've got those same shapes at the bottom. And if I had stickers and colors to guide me which is which, that would be one thing, but I don't. So we're going to run into potential issues. So as we study this, we see we've got a center, we've got edges here, two of which are of the same shape, like we talked about. Two of these are of the same shape, so we've got two different types of shapes of edges, and same thing over here. And we've got interesting corners here to make the star pattern. With this, we've got a center here, so this is actually a center over here. This is an edge, and this is an edge over here too. These are, of course, corners, two of which look pretty much exactly the same. Over here, this is also a center, but it's different. So this center is different from this center, but these edges, these thick ones here, are pretty much the same. Come across here, and the same kind of thing. So there's a lot of variability with shape. So before embarking on the solve of this, it's kind of important to, just like with the case cube, study the overall design, because you might end up walking into a trap, and the best way to avoid that is to understand what you're dealing with. But I see this center over here and this center over here are next to each other, and if you can imagine, we've got like a short edge and this is a long edge. A short edge is facing the short edge on this side. You can sort of see it manifest on the corners here, the edges here, is that you've got the short edge facing the short edge here. For here, on these edges, you've got the long edge facing the long edge over here. So too, if this is a center and this is a center, you sort of see them, the long edges, facing each other the same way. So that's going to be important because it could mix us up a little bit as we're trying to solve. So the scramble of this, now it's interesting because this is actually scrambled even though it looks like it's, or this is not in sync even though it looks like it might be. But it scrambles the way you would expect any other mod to scramble, doing 90-degree turns in order to maintain its core. It basically causes the phenomenon of shape-shifting, which always lends the degree of challenge, and it shape-shifts into very interesting ways. So let's go through this, and this is actually a viewer request, and this viewer request stemmed on dilemmas with certain parodies that come out with this. So what I'm going to do is, in addition to the solve, I'm going to address every one of the parodies that were brought to my attention as they were numbered in his particular video with the question. So I'm going to take this, the scramble the rest of the way. Abracadabra. Okay, and our star has gone supernova. You can see it's completely scrambled. Now be careful, because the solve of this thing is wrought with complications and deceptions and parodies allure because of parts that look the same, parts that are shaped the same. So let's walk through this together and see how we can work our way through this. This moves really well. Definitely worthy of a collection if you're into modifications and into variations of 3x3s and exploring how parodies can, or false equivocations can lend more of a challenge. So here's a top center, here's a bottom center, or vice versa. I suppose where stars exist in space, there is no top or bottom, there is no up or down, but there is parity. So, so we'll go ahead and start by doing our cross. I'm going to orient my centers first. So I see this center of this type and of this type. So I know that the small edges are going to be facing each other, or the small sides. So this is going to be facing this. This is how it's going to be oriented. For this center, again, the long edges of these centers are going to be facing each other too. So just for the purposes of orientation, this is what it's supposed to look like. So let's go ahead and try to get our cross. This is already here. Does it line up with any of these? And yeah, so this lines up over here pretty well. What about this one? Probably not this. Actually, this wouldn't fit there anyway. Okay, well here's one here that just might. So let's move this down. Alright, so too this is on its side. So if it lines up with this like this, and it does, so now I can move it up. Now, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. This is Rubik's Cube strategy. So this is in, this is in. So after these have been placed, we're now going to work on these guys here. So we're going to have to find edges. Now, which ones go in, which ones don't. This can be a lot of trial and error. You can try to figure it out, but there'll be plenty of times, plenty of opportunities to do that in other scenarios. So which one of these is going to be able to walk in the proper position? Will this walk in? Well, it's got to line up with this because it's going to be oriented like this. So I'm going to turn this here, and will this come up to the right side? Nope, so obviously this isn't correct. So this one isn't correct, or rather this one isn't correct. Maybe this one is. So let me move this down, and then I'm going to move this down by another 90 degrees. Does this fit? Yeah, this fits here. So I'm going to move this up twice. All right, let's see if I can get this back here. I batted this center out over here. And this is supposed to be lined up over here. So this belongs here. 1, 2. So I hope you caught that, but basically I'm just orienting everything. So these were already in. I kind of batted them out in order to put this in. So which one belongs with this? Well, could it be this one? Or could it be another one down here like this one? Well, let's see what plays out. We'll move this down. It's got to line up with this because I turned this by 180 degrees. So I'll just kind of bat that out of the way. I'll move this back up. And I'm doing this to see if it'll line up with this, and apparently it won't. So I'm not even going to go there. This one should. So I'm going to put it up here so you can see that lines up with this center. Turn it up. This one we batted down, so turn this back. Okay, so I have these guys lined up, and again, this was pure positioning. If you didn't quite follow what I was doing, basically I knew the orientation of these centers, and I was putting the edges in the correct orientation, and sometimes if I moved it down, I just remembered that this side was going to be facing up, so which one of these edges could I put in here? If you had a hard time following that, let me know, but I think you got it. So by the true layer by layer method, what I'm going to do is put these edges in here. So which ones are going to look like stars, or corners in rather? This one fits in here nicely. I forgot to mention that in between these two small ones you have this arrowhead. In between these two larger ones you have the one that is kind of at an angle like this, and then in between the small one and the large one, at the large part of the small one and the small part of the large edge, you're going to have these elongated arrowheads. So I'm going to put the ones in that are obvious. The one that goes here, it's going to be the angled one. I can use this one, or I can use another one. I am equivocating both of those. Fallaciously? Perhaps. We'll see. But I don't think so. Not in this case. Turn. The reason why I say not in this case is because I have two that look the same. And they're both going to have very specific places where they have to go. But when I have four that look the same, that's going to be a problem. Because I can swap those two. Okay, so here and here, it's going to be those elongated arrowheads. Okay, so which one belongs in here? Well, it could be this one. Maybe this one belongs in here. It just has to be rotated. So we'll just kind of rotate these around and see what we can put in. Again, I'm not going to do too much mental gymnastics trying to figure out which one it is, because I could just figure it out. See, this one fit flush in here, so this one obviously belongs here. And I'm going to find the one that's of the same shape that'll go into here. So we could just keep playing around with it until we get eventually the star pattern. So we've got the star pattern here. Now let me mention something that I didn't really get into at the beginning, which perhaps I should have. But notice I've got two of the same shape over here. On the bottom here, it's going to be the same thing, two of the same shape. Now, this belongs here. If I take this and put it into here, it's not going to fit. It's not going to belong. It's going to be facing down, or it's going to be facing up. So this can only be here if it's to be on this side. It cannot be here, and vice versa. Even though these look the same, the fact that they have a unique position, or the fact that, yeah, they have basically a unique position, means that I won't be able to confuse this with this, because if I try to put this here, it just won't work. But I do have another piece that looks exactly like this that goes on the bottom side. The difference is that this only belongs here, or this can be at this area on the opposite side. So this could either be here, or it could be on the bottom star, just on the opposite side, just below this. And the thing is it might not seem to matter, because as I'm putting one in versus another, I'm basically saying that they're equivalent. This is equivalent to another piece that can also either go here or here. But the problem is, although I can use this piece, or I can use another piece, say this one, and rotate this one in, I'm just paying attention to this piece here. Bang. See, I just substituted for that. I basically said that one is completely equivalent to the other. And it might seem that that's the case, but the puzzle will not agree. The puzzle will say no. Each piece has a specific place that it's supposed to be. It doesn't matter if one is shaped the same or looks the same. And normally I'll have different colors to guide me with that. Because I don't have those colors, I cannot say that this piece and the other piece that I just replaced it is completely equivalent. Because according to the end configuration of this puzzle, the solved state, it's not the case. One of those is the actual one, and I have no way of knowing which one it is. Hence the notion of the fallacy of false equivocation. Is it this one, or is it this one? I have no way of knowing, but the puzzle knows, and I won't know until the very last layer. So bear that in mind, that all I did was put in perhaps the wrong one from the one side. Okay, so let's move on to the middle layer. And with the middle layer, you can see that this edge is already put in, and this belongs right underneath this one. If it didn't, I'll just move this out. Okay, if it wasn't placed, you can see that this edge is here, and this one at the top obviously belongs here. So we're going to go ahead and put that back in. The algorithm that I'm using is straight Rubik's Cube algorithms, which if you want, I can post. But basically, this is held just to the side of where it's supposed to be. This has to substitute down with here. So from the left side, we do our left-sided edge swapping algorithm, and there it is. So we're good. But what else? I know that these things don't belong up in the top layer. They belong here. But which goes to where? Well, if we run into trouble, just hold it right above where you think it might go, and place it in and see if it fits. This obviously doesn't fit like this, so I'm going to move this here, move this down, doesn't fit over here, so this doesn't belong anywhere there. But it fits over here. So because it fits over here, I'm basically going to swap these two, well, not swap them, but I'm going to put this edge down here. So it's going to the left, so I'm going to be doing a UI, LI, U, L, U, F, UI, FI. And that'll cleanly place that over here. How about this edge coming down to here, and you can see it fits. So it's exactly the same algorithm. Turn and turn. Okay. So we've got our top layer. Now we're making our middle layer here. This one, it's going to be this guy here. How does it fall in? Falls in like this. So we're going to go ahead and move it in like that. So the left side is going to be just the opposite. U, R, UI, RI, UI, FI, U, F. Alright, so we have this layer over here. Okay, now we do the top layer. Bear in mind, this is a 3x3. So what we first have to do is we first have to rotate the edges. And that's using the F, R, U, R, I, U, I, F, I. And we're looking for the L formation, the line formation, and look what we have. We've got 3 that are rotated correctly and 1 that's rotated wrong. Well, this is a parity situation. It's a parity because you're not supposed to get this. We've gotten this on a 4x4 and all even numbered puzzles, but we are not supposed to get this on an odd numbered puzzle. So this is a 3x3 parity. And just to demonstrate that, if I were to try to roll in these edges here, okay, if I were to demonstrate that, you see this is in, this is in, this is in, and this is out. So why did this happen? Well, we went over that situation with a case cube. But when you're encountering parities, because we have an understanding of what parities mean, we can actually analyze to see exactly what happened. And what happened here is this is an edge parity, which means we falsely equivocated an edge. Somewhere along the line, we put the wrong edge in. Either we put an edge in a place where another edge was supposed to be that looked the same, or we put an edge in that was rotated incorrectly, but we had no way of knowing the correct rotation. So which one of these edges are symmetric? Not this one. This one. Not this one, but look at this one over here. This one could have gone either way. And what we did is we assumed that one rotation was the same as the next. So when you see a situation like this, first recognize it's an edge. Where's our edge equivocation? It must have been this one. So all we have to do to get out of this is roll this out and then put it back in, but the other way. So I'm going to basically take this out. I'll swap this edge for it to begin with, which will put this up here, and then put it in the other way around. Same algorithm. Okay, so it lopped our edge over here, so we're going to wrap this around here and put it back in, which will make it, which will completely rotate it and put it in the right place. Turn, turn, and turn. Okay, so we turned it around, and lo and behold, bang. Everything was put in. Not only is it put in, it also happens to be placed correctly. Now we know it didn't have to happen that way. It could have happened like this. Could have happened like this, where you have 2 in and 2 out. 2 rotated right, 2 rotated wrong. But it doesn't matter because this is completely acceptable. So you just do it exactly like a Rubik's Cube. Here's your L over here, and do that F, R, U, R, I, U, I, F, I, which gives us our line, F, R, U, R, I, U, I, F, I, and they're all in. So that's a way of very quickly and easily dealing with that. Now we just permute these around. By permute, I mean rotate. This is in. This algorithm will rotate these around to their proper place. R, U, R, I, U, R, to U, R, I, and again, R, R, U, R, I, U, R, to U, R, I. So that's in. These guys just happen to be in. Okay. Okay, so now we'll we're going to do the corners. So we'll see which one is in, and that's going to be the one that's held constant while we rotate the others around. Well, this arrowhead is where it needs to be, and it's the only one that's there, so that's okay. This is not where it needs to be. This we can assume maybe isn't where it's supposed to be, because in a 3x3, if one is in, the rest have to be out, and this one is obviously not where it's supposed to be. So we can say that this is in, and none of these are where they need to be. So we'll go ahead and do our algorithm to rotate that. U, R, UI, LI, U, RI, UI, L. This remains constant here. This might be where it needs to be. This appears to be where it needs to be. And this appears to be where it needs to be. So basically, the next step is just to rotate all of them in, because they're all right where they've got to be. But are we sure about that? Are we absolutely sure that these are all where they need to be? Well, if this truly belongs here, and my suggestion is, because we might have parity, this is where it needs to be, this is where it needs to be. What if these two weren't? If these two weren't, then we actually have a corner parity, and it's possible in this particular puzzle. So if this is where it needs to be, can this flip to the same, can this flip down to be here, to fit flush over here? Well, when you analyze this, when you study this, it becomes apparent that this piece is equivalent to this piece. Now, why do I say that? I say that because take a look at the shape. All I have to do is take this and rotate it like that, and I have this piece. Well, this piece here, this elongated arrowhead, is not supposed to be equivalent to this, because it's over here, it's on the opposite side. So the one that is equivalent to this one should be over here, which means this is supposed to be here. Same thing here. I'm sure we would find that if I take this and just rotate it here, this piece, it's going to be exactly the same. Which means if I went through the process and I tried to put all of these in, I'm going to end up with something that's not solved. So in actuality, these two are in, or these two are out, and these two are in, which means that this is a corner parity. So what happened is I basically put these two up here, when in reality one of these is supposed to be up here. I had no way of knowing that. If I had different colored sides, it would be easy for me to figure that out, but in this case there isn't. Which means I have to move either this to here or this to here. It doesn't matter which one. It's able to handle that kind of a conformation. Because this one is supposed to be equivalent to this one, not this one. Okay, so I hope you followed that, but because this appears to be the same as this, I have a corner parity, which means I falsely equivocated corners. And all I'm going to do to get out of this, to save me frustration, is I'm going to take this and put it up here. So I'm going to rotate, turn, turn, turn. You see, in one rotation I was able to do that and turn that back. Now I've got to get this edge back in here, so I'm going to do that real quick. Turn, turn. Now when I did that, it kind of messed the side up a little bit, but that's okay. I can easily get that back. I know that there's no parity situation here, so here's my L, F, R, U, R, I, U, I, F, I, my line, F, R, U, R, I, U, I, F, I. Okay, so all of these are in. I just have to coordinate them right. R, U, R, I, U, R, 2, U, R, I. Okay, so these two are in, so I just move this one UI and I just do that once more. R, U, R, I, U, R, 2, U, R, I, and then move that back. This is just Rubik's Cube stuff, so all these are in. Now, the thing about algorithms is this is the closest thing to faith that science and mathematics is going to give us. I have complete faith now that these are correctly placed in terms of the proper side. There is no more fallacy of false equivocation. I have corrected all of that based on reasoning, so let's just go ahead with the solve. Okay, is this in? Is this equivalent? This is not in, because if I take this and move it here, this is not properly placed. This belongs here, which means this is also out. So this is out, and this is out, and this is out, and this is out. So no worries. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to coordinate it to where I want to put one of these in. So I'm going to hold this here until one of these two, which don't have another shape that looks like it are placed in. So do the algorithm to permute these corners. By permute, I mean change around. I don't want to assume any mathematical knowledge. Okay, so this arrowhead is where it should be, and this is the only place it can be, just opposite this. So this is where it needs to be. These, I'm going to assume, are not where it's supposed to be, because now they're all going to be, all these three are going to be out, or they're all going to be in. So, and I'm going to do this until my angled piece is where it should be, which it is. So now I know, because this is in and this is in, both of these are in. So now I just do the RI, DI, RD moves to get these back. So this is our last step of the Rubik's Cube. Now be very careful you're following which one. Don't get this one in, it's this one. If you lose track of that, you will undermine your solve. It's not this one. Don't let that fool you. It's this one. See, that would have thrown you off. You have to follow it closely. Turn this over here, and now we're not going to run into any trouble with that because the top and the bottom corners are different. Turn, 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 turn. Now same thing here. Turn, turn, and once more, one more round. Turn, 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 and it's done, and our faith is well founded in true, justified, true belief, and it's done, it's solved. Alright, so that's the approach. Bear in mind the potential parities of corners, of edges rather, because of this possibly being rotated. If you see the corner, the edge parity, bear in mind the corners. These two are not equivalent to each other. These two are not equivalent to each other. This one is equivalent to this, because this one cannot be opposite and be equivalent, so these two are not equivalent to each other, but these two are, and these two are in our minds, but it's not equivalent to each other in terms of how the puzzle is solved. So that's a quick run through of how to solve this. So, thanks for watching.